Today's story is about how a young woman was humiliated in front of a crowd for being poor, and 1 year later she returned to buy the entire hotel that kicked her out. What she did next will leave you speechless. Subscribe to my channel, leave a like and write a comment. For every new subscriber I'll donate $1 to charity. She arrived in the city with just $200 in her pocket and a suitcase that had seen better days. Tomorrow was supposed to be the biggest day of her life, a job interview at a top tech firm. The kind of opportunity that could lift someone out of nothing and put them on the map. She wasn't rich, not even close, but she had hope, and she wanted to spend the night somewhere that reflected the future she was trying to build. Somewhere polished, somewhere with glass doors and marble floors. So she found a hotel online, one of those fancy ones with gold logos and rooftop views, and it just so happened they were running a last-minute discount. She booked it. It took nearly all her remaining money, but she figured sometimes you have to look like success to become success. When she arrived, the lobby was glowing with soft light and quiet piano music. Businessmen moved past her with leather briefcases. The woman behind the reception desk looked up, then immediately looked her up and down. There was a pause, the kind that always says more than words. "Hi, I have a reservation under Kayla Mitchell." The receptionist typed slowly, chewing gum like it was her full-time job. "You said Kayla Mitchell?" "Yes." I see something here, but your card was declined." Kayla froze. "That can't be. I just checked, I still have enough." The receptionist rolled her eyes and tilted the monitor away from Kayla. "Maybe you booked a fake deal or something. We don't deal with third-party scams." "It wasn't a scam. I used the official site. Could you maybe just try again?" Another eye roll. "Security." Kayla blinked. "Wait, what? You're causing a scene, miss. If you don't leave we'll be forced to." That's when two men in black shirts appeared behind her. One of them rested a hand near her shoulder, not touching but close enough to make a point. Across the room a man in a blazer lifted his phone and started filming. He was smiling. "Come on, it's just a broke girl trying to sneak in." He laughed to the guy next to him. Kayla wanted to disappear. Her face burned. She turned to the receptionist one more time. "Please, this job interview tomorrow. I just need one night." The woman waved her off like swatting a fly. "Not our problem, leave, now." Moments later she was outside. The rain had started, slow at first, then heavier, soaking through her hoodie. The neon lights from the hotel flickered behind her, blurred by tears. She stood there for a while, unsure where to go. Eventually she walked to a small park across the street and sat on a cold metal bench. Her suitcase beside her, her shoes wet, her pride shattered. She didn't sleep that night. She just stared at the sidewalk, shivering, with a mix of rage and humiliation boiling in her chest. No one looked at her, no one cared. And yet, that night, on that bench, she made a silent promise. She wasn't going to let them win. She wasn't just going to survive. She was going to rise. And one day, they would remember her. Not as the poor girl they laughed at, but as the woman who bought the whole damn building. The sun was just beginning to rise when she heard footsteps on the wet sidewalk. Kayla hadn't moved from the bench all night. Her legs were stiff, her eyes heavy, and her clothes still soaked from the rain. She kept her head low, thinking maybe it was another cop, or worse, another stranger with comments she didn't need. But the voice that spoke to her was calm, kind. "Full lies? Rough night?" Kayla looked up. A man, maybe in his late 60s, stood in front of her holding two steaming paper cups. He wore a gray coat and a knitted scarf. His face was lined, but his eyes were warm. He held out one of the cups. "Coffee?" She hesitated. "It's not poisoned," he added, with a soft chuckle. She took it. It was still hot, and for a second she just stared at the cup, like it was the only warmth she had in the world. "Thanks," she whispered. The man sat down next to her, not too close, not prying, just quiet. "Name's Henry, by the way. You look like someone with a story." Kayla didn't plan to say anything, but once she opened her mouth, the words just poured out, about the hotel, the interview, the rain, the humiliation, the video. She didn't cry. She couldn't anymore. It was like her emotions had dried up during the night. Henry listened, the whole time, no interruptions, no advice, just silence, and a nod every now and then. When she was done, He didn't ask questions. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small business card. "I run a foundation," he said. "We help people who've hit the bottom, not with charity, but with tools. You want your life to change? I can offer you 3 things." Kayla blinked. "A business course. Free. Designed for people like you. Fighters. You'll learn how to launch something real. Second, a small studio to live in. Rent paid for the first month. Third, mentorship. Someone to guide you, but not to baby you." Kayla looked at the card. "There's a catch, right?" Henry smiled. "Of course. 14-hour workdays. No shortcuts. You show up every day, early, and you don't leave until you've earned your place. We don't waste time on people who just want handouts." She didn't even think twice. "I'm in." That was how it started. For the next 60 days, Kayla worked harder than she had in her entire life. She took every note, watched every lecture, and practiced every skill until it was second nature. During the day she studied, and at night she sketched ideas in a notebook Henry had given her. She slept on a fold-out couch in a tiny room above a garage, but it was warm, and it was hers. The idea came to her one evening while walking past a thrift store. She saw a girl holding up a used denim jacket, looking into a cracked mirror. The girl smiled at herself, not because the jacket was expensive, but because it made her feel something, made her feel seen. Kayla remembered that feeling. She remembered being in a small town, with nothing to wear but hand-me-downs, and still wanting to feel beautiful. Powerful. That night, on her bed, she drew a logo. Park Girl, an online store for young women from small towns. Affordable style, clothes that didn't just cover you, they gave you a voice. By the end of week 9, she had a basic site. By the end of week 10, she was shipping her first orders. She packed every box by hand, wrote handwritten notes to each customer. To the girl in Ohio, "Your strength is your style." To the teen in rural Georgia, "You matter, you shine." She was exhausted, but she was alive in a way she had never been before. Henry watched all of it quietly, never interfering, just showing up every Sunday to review her numbers and ask one question: "Are you proud of the girl you were on that bench?" Every week, her answer changed, and every week, it got stronger. Yes. Kayla didn't sleep much those months. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to waste a single hour. Every morning started before the sun rose. She brewed cheap coffee in her tiny kitchenette, turned on her old laptop, and began replying to customer emails. Then came the packing, then filming, then editing, then inventory, then brainstorming new designs. It was a blur of work, coffee, late nights, and hustle. But Kayla loved it. She filmed every product herself, using a cheap ring light and her phone propped up on stacked books. She modeled her clothes in the mirror, showed how to style them in 10 different ways, and always ended with the same message: "If no one ever told you this, you deserve to feel beautiful." Her honesty resonated. She wasn't a polished influencer with designer bags. She was real. She told stories about being broke, about rejection, about growing up invisible. And thousands of girls started following her. Then tens of thousands. By month 6, Park Girl hit 100,000 followers on social media. Orders poured in faster than she could pack. Her tiny workspace turned into organized chaos. Rolls of tape, thank you cards, fabric samples, and shipping labels covered every surface. She hired 2 part-time helpers, both girls from the same foundation Henry ran. She insisted they be paid more than minimum wage, and she made time to mentor them the way Henry had mentored her. The real turning point came on a random Thursday morning. An email landed in her inbox. Subject line: "Let's talk, acquisition." At first, Kayla thought it was a prank, but the message was real. A large e-commerce platform had been tracking Park Girl's growth. They liked her numbers. They loved her mission. They offered to buy her brand, full rights, with a clause that she would stay on as creative director for the first year. The number shocked her. $2.8 million. She stared at the screen for 10 minutes, reading the number over and over. It didn't feel real. A month later, the deal closed. She sat in the back of a black car, being driven to a downtown office to sign the paperwork. She wore one of her own designs, a soft blazer she once sketched while sitting on the park bench, and as she signed the final document, her hands trembled just a little. She had done it. Kayla, the girl who'd been thrown out of a hotel lobby like trash, was now a millionaire. The first thing she bought wasn't a car or a designer bag. It was a house, small, modern, quiet, with a yard and sunlight in the kitchen, somewhere she could finally breathe. But even as she walked through her new home, Kayla couldn't shake a certain feeling. It wasn't anger, it wasn't bitterness, it was purpose. She hadn't forgotten that night, the rain, the disgusted faces, the security guard who grabbed her arm, the laughter, the phone recording. That moment had branded itself into her bones. One morning, after watering her new houseplants and making coffee in a real kitchen, she sat down at her laptop. She opened Google. Her fingers hesitated only briefly, then she typed the name of the hotel, the same place that threw her out, the place that laughed at her. She hit enter, and stared. What she saw sparked something in her, not revenge, not yet, but something else, an idea, and this time, she had the money to make it real. The Day Protel was struggling. That much was clear from the articles, reviews, and business reports Kayla found online. Complaints were piling up. Service was inconsistent. A few lawsuits had been filed by former staff. And most importantly, the owners were looking for a way out. Kayla didn't hesitate. She called her attorney the same day and said just one thing: I want to buy it. Quietly. Within 48 hours, they had arranged everything. A new name for the deal. A clean shell company. A neutral investment group as the buyer. No one would trace the offer back to her. She wanted it that way. A week later, she arrived at the hotel again. But this time, nothing about her presence screamed desperation. She stepped out of a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. A personal driver opened her door. She wore designer sunglasses, a tailored coat and heels that clicked with confidence on the marble floor. The same floor where she had once stood in the rain, begging. Now, people opened doors for her. The manager greeted her with forced enthusiasm, trying to cover his anxiety. He had no idea she'd been here before. No clue what this place meant to her. He walked her through the numbers, the recent renovations, the vision for growth, all the corporate talk she used to only hear in motivational videos. Kayla said little. She just smiled politely, nodded, and took notes. Inside, her heart beat like a drum. But outside, she was pure control. 2 weeks later, the papers were signed. Kayla became the new owner of the hotel. The moment the ink dried, she sat back in the chair and exhaled. This was it. This was justice. But she wasn't done. Her first order as the official owner: pull the security footage from the night she was thrown out. The manager seemed confused but obeyed. The tapes were old, but they had archives. Kayla sat alone in a quiet room and watched the screen. There she was, soaking wet, arguing at the front desk. The receptionist with the red lipstick, the smirking guest with his phone out, the security guard grabbing her arm, the way she tried to explain, the way no one listened. She let it play twice. Then she asked for a list of all the staff who had worked that night. Some were still employed. Some had moved on. A few had been promoted. Kayla smiled coldly. The next step was simple. She sent out a mandatory invite for an all-staff meeting in the conference room. No exceptions. Full attendance required. She made sure her name wasn't on the email. No one knew who the new owner was yet. The announcement had been delayed for legal reasons, and she asked her lawyers to keep it that way for one more week. On the day of the meeting, the entire hotel staff gathered in the conference hall. Some wore uniforms, others business suits. A few looked tired. A few looked bored. Kayla stood behind the glass door watching them. The same people who had laughed, sneered, ignored her. Now they sat waiting for something. They didn't know that the girl they had once kicked out in the rain now owned the ceiling above their heads. She smoothed her blazer, pushed the door open and stepped into the room. Heads turned, silence followed. No one recognized her, but they would soon. Kayla stepped to the front of the room, her heels echoing off the tile like a slow drumbeat. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. Some staff looked confused, others curious. A few just looked bored, unaware of what was about to unfold. She stood silently for a moment, scanning the room. Then she picked up the remote and turned on the screen behind her. A security camera feed began to play. There, in grainy black and white, was the hotel lobby from almost 2 years ago. Rain blurred the glass doors. A young woman, soaked and shivering, stood at the front desk. She was pleading. The receptionist was rolling her eyes. A man nearby filmed her with his phone, chuckling. Security arrived. She was escorted out. No resistance, just shame. Wet hair clinging to her face, her hands clutching a thin bag. A soft gasp passed through the room. Kayla let the footage play all the way through. Then she paused. Right at the moment, the girl turned back, one last time, before stepping into the storm. She turned to the crowd. "That was me," she said simply. Silence. "I was that girl. The one you humiliated. The one you kicked out into the night." A few people looked at each other, disbelief growing. "I came here with hope, with barely any money. I had a dream, and I just needed one night. But you all saw someone unworthy. You treated me like trash." Her voice didn't waver, waver. "Well, now I'm your new owner." The air was electric. Someone dropped their pen. A whisper passed through the back row like a ripple. "I've spent the last year building something from nothing. I turned a park bench into a business. I turned pain into purpose. And I bought this hotel, not for profit, but for principle." She took a breath. "I reviewed the footage. I read the reports. I've seen who stood by and who stood silent. Today, that ends." She reached into her folder and took out 2 stacks of envelopes. The first stack, pink slips. "UF," she pointed to the receptionist from that night, "are dismissed. So is the night manager. So is the guest services lead, and the man who laughed while recording me." A wave of tension broke across the room. Eyes went wide, mouths opened, then shut. But then Kayla held up one envelope. This one in a different color. Deep blue. "There is one person I want to thank." She looked to the back of the room, where a man in a worn gray blazer sat quietly, his head slightly bowed. "You," she said, to the security guard. Everyone turned. "You were the only one who didn't laugh. That night, after I was forced out, you came outside. You didn't say anything, but you gave me a blanket." His eyes lifted, stunned. "You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask for anything. You just saw someone suffering, and you acted." She handed him the envelope. "This is your promotion letter. Starting today, you're head of security and guest protection." The room fell into complete stillness. No one dared speak. Kayla stepped forward again. This hotel will change. From today on we operate under new rules. Discrimination of any kind. Gone. Arrogance toward guests, over. We are installing a permanent program to assist job seekers with short-term housing. She looked around, and the entire first floor, we're converting it into a shelter. For women escaping abuse. For mothers with children. For anyone who needs a safe night's sleep. Her voice softened. Because I remember what it's like to be desperate, and I never want anyone else to feel what I felt that night. Some staff looked down. Others blinked hard. Kayla walked to the side, ready to leave the stage. But before she exited, she said one final thing. Compassion is the new luxury, and in this hotel, it will be non-negotiable. A month after the staff meeting, Kayla's story hit the front page of a major business magazine. The headline read, "From Rejection to Redemption. How One Woman Bought the Hotel That Threw Her Out." The article went viral overnight. Thousands of people reshared it. Influencers called it empowering. CEOs called it bold. Survivors called it necessary. Kayla read the comments with a strange sense of distance. Gratitude. Yes. Validation, maybe. But not triumph. Because for her, it had never really been about revenge. It was about something bigger. The truth was, the night she was kicked out hadn't just broken her, it had shown her the cracks in the entire system. The casual cruelty. The blindness to struggle. The quiet belief that worth came from wealth. So now that she had a voice, she wanted to use it to rewrite more than one ending. She kept funding the shelter. Added trauma counselors. Partnered with local job centers. Her hotel became a place where guests left with more than just a receipt, some left with a future. But change wasn't just about programs, it was about moments. One gray morning, Kayla was walking through the park on her way back from a meeting. It was early, cold. The same kind of air she'd felt that night, so long ago. She passed the bench without thinking, and then stopped. Someone was sitting there. A girl. Maybe 19, thin jacket. Tear-stained cheeks, looking down at her shoes like they were the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Kayla froze. Her chest tightened. The memory was instant. The rain. The fear. The silence. That was her, once. She didn't hesitate. Kayla walked over and sat beside the girl, careful not to startle her. The girl glanced up, wary. "You okay?" Kayla asked softly. The girl wiped her cheek and nodded. The kind of nod people give when they're trying to be strong. Kayla reached into her bag and pulled out a card. It had her name, but not the company logo, not the fancy title. Just an address. "There's a place," she said. "Warm food. A bed. No questions asked, and someone who'll listen." The girl looked at the card like it was a ticket to another life. Kayla smiled. "Someone helped me once. Now I help someone else. That's how it works." They sat for a minute in silence. Then the girl whispered thank you. Kayla stood up. She didn't ask the girl's name. Didn't need to. Because she understood something now, something bigger than any magazine feature or business deal. Every story starts with a choice, but not every ending is final. Some endings are just disguised beginnings, and sometimes all it takes to change a life is a single hand, reaching out exactly when it's needed most.